We've been working together for nearly 10 years, actually, since 2004. But this was a piece that I did before we met. This was Bradford's Provincial House. I don't know if you remember the vast city centre where the kind of new leisure development is now, just off Centenary Square. They had to destroy it by explosion because of its location. And so they were going to shroud it. They were going to shroud it in a grey fabric. I asked them to change that to white, which cost a few £100. And then we projected what was at the time the biggest projection in the world, which was a scene from the Queen visiting Bradford in 1897, I think it was. I mean, to do the biggest installation in the projection in the world is quite easy. Just pull the projector a bit further away. Anyway.
This is the first project that Steve and I actually did together, and it's called I, and it features my daughter's eye, who sat right over there. It was projected actually onto the library, which is just next to the busiest roundabout in Bradford. If any of you know Bradford, it's a roundabout the way just before you head up to Manchester Road. And this was a piece of work where I wanted to kind of explore the idea of the private and the kind of voyeuristic, but in a very, very, very large site. So this whole piece was about kind of a keyhole imagery. So it started off with a keyhole, and when you kind of shot through the keyhole and into what was happening, I kind of played with the rhythm of two naked bodies, and the rhythm of what was going on between those bodies. And I focused the camera on intimate parts of the body that actually were very viewable for the public, but because of the rhythm and the suggested imagery that I gave, it kind of gave the idea that actually this was a sexual act that was taking place, you just weren't seeing all of it. And the idea then to kind of zoom out and through back into the eye was actually this, conceptually, this is a piece of work that is, you know, you can put on a huge site in the middle of Bradford, and that a 6-year-old at the time could have also witnessed. So it was kind of playing with the idea of what was private, what was public, and kind of really pushing the envelope a little bit with that.
NRG, the Navwood reality game, it was what's it called? Creative Partnerships project. It was the largest creative partnerships project that's been done to date. We worked with a school, Navwood School, a school which had just come out of special measures. What we wanted to do was to create a project which would pull all of the school together. So we created a game that one person would play, but the whole school put together. So the tagline was a cast of 1,000, cast of 1,000, an audience of one. We worked with every department of the school. We worked with art galleries. We invited a kids' TV celebrity to be the star of it. And he was propelled all over the city, just discovering this narrative, completely new and invented narrative, a narrative invented by the kids. This is something that we're revisiting at the moment.
This was a piece done in a small village called Newton-under-Rosebery. It's a village that only has one road going through it. There must be, about 30 households and one pub. So that's the size of this. And the idea for this piece of work was to take the entire village and create it and make it into an artwork. So about 14 artists and artist companies and groups were asked to be commissioned, and we kind of came back with ideas involving quite large scale, including lighting the kind of the hilltop that is behind the village, and kind of to the point where you could actually see the lasers that were coming off it from 30 miles around, to a quite intimate piece, which is what we did, which was called Substop. And we liked the idea of having this, because it was Captain Cook's birthplace, we wanted to kind of link it. It's a very landlocked village, and we wanted to link it with the sea. How do you link a landlocked village with the sea? Well, you look at its history and you kind of create an artwork which looks like it's been picked up from the bottom of the ocean and plonked in the middle of this village with these fantastical creatures. We also wanted to make something that was accessible to the public. Most of the time, projection, people stand away from it to view it. We wanted to create something where you could go up to it and touch it. I think that was the first time when we made something where the audience and the viewers could actually begin to play and touch and interact with it, but without any button pushing or any kind of technological interface. It's more theatrical human interface. And they would actually go and knock on the window and see if the characters would actually react to them, play with them, and kind of respond to them, and just have their photo taken with it. And that was what was really lovely, just to see people just doing really simple things.
You want to talk about the next one?
This was a piece that was in Bradford Centenary Square, which the big screen over there, that I don't think many people know, has quite an interesting technological interface behind it, which was set up, partly by Steve Manthorp, to be able to be used by artists and people working with technology to create more interactive, playful artwork involving CCTV cameras and technology which we kind of take for granted now as artists.
Only big screen in the country with a PS2 port. Yeah. I insisted on it.
And I wanted to kind of create something which actually utilised that technology, because within the first 3 years it hadn't been utilised. So this was a piece that was called Whitewashed, and I wanted to kind of show the diversity of Bradford without hitting people over the head with it and saying, here, you know, this is Bradford, it's got a large Asian community. I wanted to kind of say, actually, Bradford has a larger diversity than that. I also wanted to look at what makes us the same and what our similarities are. So I interviewed up to about 15 people, different backgrounds, different ages, and the questions were to do with what makes us the same, not what makes us different, what makes us the same. And I worked with Tom Betts to write the software for it, as written for this piece. So 2 pieces of video, one coloured, the coloured video was behind it, and the black and white video was at the front, were linked to the CCTV cameras, and you saw the person speaking, you heard them speaking as well, but you only saw the coloured video underneath it to reveal the actual ethnicity of that person. When the CCTV cameras caught people walking in front of them, then you'd see the silhouette and the shape of those people. And the kind of idea behind it was the idea that one person is superior than another due to the race, due to their background, were actually an accident of birth. So me being Asian was because I was born to those parents. It wasn't a choice. It was as arbitrary as someone walking in front of a camera. As a bird, it picked up any movement. So if any animals walked in front of it, that was the shape that you saw.
This was Meander, a project which is still nominally ongoing. It was a slow art project, and talk about slow, it's been going for, I think, 3 years now. These are head-mounted video cameras, head-mounted HD video cameras, and we've been inviting people to walk in pairs or in larger groups, or cycle, or horse ride, across the Dales, and we're slowly building up. We edit them as split-screen video, so you get the 2 perspectives simultaneously. And we've built up an archive. You can find the project on our website, adeptprojects.co.uk, and you can click on walks all over the Dales, and you get the full walk and all the conversation. People do forget very quickly that they're on camera. We have some fairly alarming conversations sometimes. But it's actually become a very useful resource. We didn't anticipate it, but a number of people use it when they're preparing for walks, and we've had a couple of emails from people who can't walk anymore, who sort of vicariously enjoy walks through it. Yeah.
Stop playing. There you go. This was a piece that we did, was it last year, year before, as part of the Bridges Festival up in Newcastle. And it's it's a site. We like when we're looking for sites, we don't always go for the biggest projection site that you can find. We're interested in the spaces that are hidden, that people wouldn't normally go to, they wouldn't normally want to interact with or even be in. So we end up in some really disgusting places. And this one was a seriously disgusting site when we got there, but we kind of, hopefully, I think we transformed it. I think the best way to we called it, what was it called again? I'm going to get the phrasing wrong. It was almost like the grandfather of the time. And the idea was to have, it was kind of Banks of the Scene, that was it. The idea was to kind of invert the idea of a public projection. So it's a very public piece of work, but you can only see it through quite small peepholes. And when you look through the peephole, you hear the sound of the river, and you see the eyes of the river looking back at you. And, you know, I'm quite interested in eyes. I'm stood here wearing shades after having an intervention. And this was my father's eyes before he had cataracts removed. And I was interested in showing them with the blue, the rim of blue around his actual pupil, just to kind of, because I just thought it looked beautiful. And the viewers, when they actually looked in, they didn't actually see the setting. All they saw were these eyes. It was quite difficult for us to make sure that it was all masked. So you didn't see the dead rats, the dead pigeons and everything on the floor. You didn't see the sand that was there, you know, all the hacked walls on the sides. All you saw were these huge eyes peering back at you.
This was Mablethorpe in 1953. The whole of the East Lincolnshire coast is very prone to coastal flooding. The people who remember that dreadful flood, many people were killed, are of an age now, they're dying. And so we were approached by the Environment Agency, East Lindsey Borough Council, originally to produce an exhibition that would inform people about the flood and about the risk of flooding. We felt that was a fairly dry approach and we could do something more interesting. So we created a flash mob event. And you can find this on Vimeo and on YouTube as, I think if you put flash flood Mablethorpe, you'll find it. We worked with a local school, and the schools brought in their families. We also worked with holiday makers on the day. And the flash mob was with towels. We had 600 towels. And at 3 points in Mablethorpe, the crowds came together and they produced this solid sea of towels at roughly the height of the flooding. And then they disappeared just as quickly.
This is a piece that we did in Bradford before. I mean, this links nicely to a piece that we're working on at the moment. It was during the development of the mirror pool, where Bradford Council wanted to create almost like a leading idea of what they were trying to do with the mirror pool. So we were commissioned. It's a piece that we called Echoing Green, and we were part of, I think it was a team of 4 artists who were commissioned to create work that responded to what the council were trying to do by creating this great body of water in the middle of the city. So we found sites and locations in and around the district in order to bring the landscape, bring the natural landscape into the urban landscape. And in unexpected ways and unexpected places. So, you know, we've got some berries, which you film really, really tight up and close and have them projected huge. So it looks like there's a giant garden that's coming out of City Hall. We also projected a waterfall into the ceremonial archway of Bradford City Hall. And, you know, they're both quite different pieces in the fact that one is untouchable, you can't reach it. But this one, was kind of, which was a bit of our crowning glory for that piece of work. We wanted, again, the audience to be able to interact with it. Yes, you know, this is Bradford, it's Friday night, Saturday night, you're going to get a certain type of interaction. But we really wanted to encourage all kinds of interaction. And it was great to see, you know, young lads just pretending like they're having a shower out in public and taking a photograph of themselves with it. And you also heard the rushing sound of the water as well. And it was that which I think really got people wanting to interact with it. That when they went up close, they could hear the rush of the water, they could see the waterfall, and they actually wanted to be in it and be a part of it, which leads us probably into a piece of work we'll talk to you about later, which we're currently working on.
To keep to time, I'm going to go through some slides very, very quickly. This is a piece we did for Saltaire Festival last year. This is a piece which we made originally for Enchanted Gardens, the festival in Newcastle and Gateshead, but we later took it out to Jerusalem. It's a video projected down onto a table of a meal being eaten, so you can only see the hands and see the food being eaten.
Just before you skip past, this piece in Jerusalem, we knew we were in the old city. We were in Jerusalem Old City, just like a stone throw from the Western Wall. And we knew that if taking a piece that had a projected meal, that we were playing with the 3 religions and what food, interaction, the Last Supper, what it means for the three faiths that that are actually dwelling there. And we really hoped that if people sat down, were able just to take a moment to think about that would kind of have an impact for us. But we were also wanting people to play with it, not just to kind of take the serious side of it. And it was great to see, people sat there having conversations in Hebrew about the meal, and what they were hearing was actually in English. And also the incidental music that was happening as a result of the street plays that were around. We didn't plan for that, but it was great. It added to the ambience of the piece.
This was a piece we did in Accrington Town Hall, working with Accrington Academy. And this was a piece that Shanaz did for Light Night last year, which I curated the Light Night. Do you want to say anything about it? Should we move on to current projects?
I mean, this kind of leads on nicely to the next one, so we're all right.
And we'd like to show you 4 projects that we're working on at the moment, all of which will be realised before Christmas by the end of November. So this is Bradford Mirror Pool. This is our visualisation of the piece that we're going to do. Very entirely innovative. I don't think it's been done before. and we now know why it hasn't been done before. Projecting down through about a foot of water into the base of the mirror pool. Technically, it's incredibly testing, but it's going to be very beautiful. Basically, we're going to line the entire mirror pool with sticky back plastic. Thank you, Blue Peter.
This is a piece that we're doing in response to Doncaster's Creative People and Places. It's the first commission that is actually launching their entire programme. It's kind of revisiting Nabwood's reality game, the idea of a reality game. That was a reality game where we worked with an entire school. So we had a cast that ready and made for us. This piece, which is called Hand in Hand, is actually, we're working with the community of Doncaster. We've created the story behind it. We've created this artefact that goes with the story. At the launch of CAST, which is their new theatre, we launched a project. This project, we're actually taking up to 250 to 300 people through to different locations in Doncaster where they're following this story, where they're trying to solve, what the murder is, what the tragedy is, and, finally, to the conclusion, or is it going to be a happy ending or not? This is happening on the 9th and 10th of November and the 15th, 16th and 17th. It's free to do, so if you guys want to sign up, please go onto our website and just send us an email. It's probably going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Hopefully not for us. We hope to survive it and do it again.
The places are going very, very quickly, so if anyone's interested, I'd sign up right away.
And just we manufactured that hand. We kind of created the idea that this was a skeleton that was discovered when CAST was when the foundations for CAST were being excavated. Found out later that for what was for us was fiction was actual fact, that they had discovered a Roman skeleton. So we like the
We'll have to really hurry with the last one. So this is New Age of Discovery. It's a promenade performance which is taking place in Snibston, which is one of the oldest collieries working, well, it was a working colliery till the 80s, in the country. It was actually owned by Stevenson, and it has a Stevenson railway going to Leicester. It's an interesting project because we've been working with the steampunk community. And in fact, we've kind of accidentally become quite associated with steampunk, which we're not particularly. But it's a project. The story is that it's 2100, and the steampunk community. Steampunks have, as it were, taken over innovation, and they are in the process of reopening the mine and reopening the museum because it's now a discovery centre. And the climax of the piece involves a speech by the Discovery Consortium, the director, by the side of an enormous video projection, 13-metre video projection, slung under the gantry run where the old mine cars went.
We filmed it and showed it, so it actually looked like there was a train approaching the screen, and that actually you were seeing the daylight setting. And then the great coup de théâtre was that a train did steam through the screen at the end of the projection. And I knew it was happening and I still screamed.
As did most of the audience. We're doing that again in...
It's the 29th of November this year.
29th of November. Again, it's bookable. Tickets are on sale. You can get to it through our website. And finally, we just want to talk about, very briefly, about a piece which is likely to be revisited. It's a piece we explored back in the 2000s called Plasticity, and it's a total modification of Unreal Tournament in which you can model a city. And you then have a series of tools. We call them wands. They did look remarkably like guns because that's what comes with Unreal. But you could transform buildings with these wands. So you could shrink buildings. You could reskin them in a different material. You could make buildings disappear or replace them from a library. You could turn them round, shrink them. You could raise the level of the water. There was a listing gun, which meant that nobody else could change the building. And the idea was that it would be an urban planning toy, that you could get up to 128 people in theory into this one space. And so you could have urban planners, you could have elected members, you could have young people, you could have older people. And we anticipated that there would be an hour of absolute anarchy with people buggering about with the city left, right and centre, but that eventually they would settle into collaborative modes and they would start to redesign the city of their dreams. Now, we only got as far as a pilot with that, just a proof of concept pilot, but we did make it work. And there has been very recently substantial interest in it, and it is possible, cross fingers, that we may be completing it later on next year.
The next slide is just where you can contact us. Just to kind of round up, this is a very, very, very quick sketch of what we do and what we have done over the last 10 years. And what our interest is, hopefully it demonstrates that we have an interest in kind of encouraging play and interactivity, a theatricality and a drama with what we do. It's about that human interface and kind of using technologies for uses that they weren't possibly designed for or developed for. You know, that's kind of what we do. And hopefully it kind of gives you a flavour of just where our work's going and where it's kind of taking us into the city, outside of the city, under the city. So, thank you.
Thank you.